Monday, February 10th, 2025. Let's dive into the market. It's been, a few months since I've done a market overview. So this is gonna be, I'm gonna try to keep it short. I'm trying to shift the content of these market overviews to a shorter thing. So I'm gonna stop fucking yapping and dive into the actual market overview. So what are we looking at? So in terms of BTC is the first thing, and we're gonna go up to the weekly to showcase kind of my, let's say, top-down thesis. Back all the way in, like, what was this, March, April? Yeah, March, April. We had this choppy phase where we just kind of ranged between 70 and 50, and people were like, it's all over, we're so back, it's all over, we're so back. And I think that's kind of the same thing we're currently at, where we're just in this crab like kind of market where we want to see that shift up, right? This dynamic of a crab market, we want to shift up, and similar to the structure here, we have almost the exact same structure. Admittedly, we're spending more time earlier in this range, in the bottom half of this range, which theoretically could be concerning. In contrast, you see that during this phase, we kind of spent a lot of those early days, the first half essentially of this chop phase, which is rather long. So what was this? This was 36 weeks. We spent the first, what is this, roughly 16 weeks above. We spent 2-3 weeks below, spent another 2 weeks roughly above, spent some more weeks below, and then again, like, what is this, like 6-7 weeks we spent above this EQ level here around 63. In contrast, we're spending a lot of time under it here. That could be of concern. At the same time, I'm not too concerned right now, and I wouldn't even mind if we do something like this and recover this 90k level. Would it be concerning? Sure. I think a lot of people would kind of pivot here to going short and saying it's so over. But I personally wouldn't be too concerned. In fact, I would very much like us revisiting this 80k level where we can kind of say, okay, we get a lot of weekends out of the market and we can continue a rally upwards with more than likely more bullish catalysts to come in the next year. So that's the kind of top-down thesis on the weekly. I think on the daily, we're forming up relatively nicely. I don't mind this structure. At the same time, I don't believe this structure is all too bullish, so to speak, overall. And I think we're going to fill this wick at the very least. I think at the very least, we're going to come down, fill this wick, probably take out these lows and revisit somewhere into here as outlined also on the weekly. So I'm getting multiple signals, so to speak, that we will be breaking this level down, kind of rejecting off this 100k level one more time before we actually revisit these lows at the very least, fill this wick, probably take out this wick, probably trade under this, fill out this void level here around 84 before we actually get this scoop and actually trade back into these levels. That's a rough thesis on BTC, and going into the 4-hour and hourly chart is kind of pointless at this point. The most bullish situation would be to flip this EQ level at 100, right? It's a perfect level. It's a nice number. It's perfectly at 100k. On top of that, it's the middle of the range. And if we actually zoom in here, we can see that once this VRVP readjusts, that around this level, and this is not perfect, this is at 97, currently exactly where we're trading, we see this VRVP level that kind of will hold a support or resistance around this level as well. So there's a lot of confluence around this 100k level, which is completely normal, right? It's a beautiful number to trade around. And on top of that, we have multiple confluence points that are indicating this an important level. One other thing that makes me think that we are or will be trading down to these levels before we actually recover is the sum of liquidations. Now, despite the fact that we had an insane amount of liquidations on this kind of candle here and this one here, I'm still seeing a lot of people longing. I'm still seeing the funding rate going net long. um, or net positive, so to speak, which to me indicates that still, despite these liquidations, there's enough capital in the markets to say, I think we're going to go higher. That isn't particularly a one-on-one like correlation with where we're going to head, but it is something that indicates to me we haven't seen max pain. Despite like soul trenches and all these things kind of not having fully recovered and actually have taken a week after this dump to actually come back to the point that they are now where they're actually doing work, I still don't think the pain was enough, and the timeline was bearish and everyone's like, it's over. They're just putting money back in the markets. People are still sitting on cash. A lot of people got liquidated. A lot of people did not have a fun time in this small move. But despite that, I still believe that max pain is to be hit, and that's going to be somewhere around here. Just my 2 cents on it. Yeah, I think, it's going to be similar to what we saw here. You saw a lot of people suffer on these drops. People were like, okay, this is the bear market. It's coming. It's over. And I think that this is the real pain drop that we're supposed to be seeing, right? I think that's what we will be seeing here as well, with possibly some type of recovery, some type of reclaim that makes people very bullish before we actually see a big liquidation down to this level and a recovery back into 90K and then just trade back upwards, similar to what we did in this area here. To some degree, that's what I love to see. You could fill in some bags, you kind of position for it accordingly. On ETH, there's honestly not so much to say. It's a fucking shitcoin at this point. I have so many drawings on ETH. We're just gonna get rid of all this. Honestly, let's get rid of all of it. ETH is a real shitter right now. This is essentially the value area in which we are currently trading. But despite that, like, I would love to see this as some type of Wyckoff, right? With one box, a second box accumulation, and then this is the long box where we just trade upwards. Now, evidently, that's not what we've done at all. But more importantly, we are sitting at this value area, and if BTC decides to do what I say, or what I kind of expect it to do, ETH will be trading down to the 2000s, low 2000s here. To fill out that wick, potentially this would be the area in which I would want to see some liquidations happen. And this would be the scoop back into this level here. So essentially, to draw it out perfectly, it would come down here and trade back up to this value area before I would be tempted to say, okay, here we go. Like, here's a long position for me, and we're going to trade upwards. That's my thesis on ETH. It's a very simple chart. It's not too bullish at all. In contrast to BTC, I think all flows are flowing into BTC, as the analytics would say. If you look at any statistics, if you look at anything, we can see a maximum inflow into BTC and a flat flow on USDT, and we're seeing an outflow of alts. And this has been the case for a while. There's a few alts that are outside of this, which is why Sol is in my primary crypto indicators, because it's one of the only alts that is actually trading upwards. And not particularly trading upwards, despite having been very bullish this entire cycle. It's not so much about it trading even remotely similar to what Bitcoin is doing, but it's having positive net inflow. And that for me indicates that people are moving money into Sol to lose it on shitcoins. But there's still net inflow on Sol, right? Whether that's retail, whatever it is, I think similar to XRP is having a net inflow overall from retail. And there's numerous indicators that do indicate that XRP, for example, is very much retail. Sol is more on-chain. Indicating that my thesis, so to speak, on the trenches being the reason Sol is trading the way it is being largely correct. But enough about that. We can go over all the statistics at some other point. As for how I'm looking at Solana at this point, this was the range we were previously speaking about on BTC, right? Some shit like this, right? That's this range. And on Sol, it's this. I drew that slightly wrong. Apologies, good sirs. This is essentially that range, and you can see BTC performed much better outside of that range, post that range, rallying much higher than Sol did. Despite that, we've seen all-time highs breached on Sol as of recent. I think it's a relatively simple chart where this is essentially that high value area, what we're looking at holding as support, and you can draw this out however you want. It's a much wider range, in my opinion, than we like it to be, or than most traders think it to be, so to speak, where most people just draw out this one line. I've spoken about this many times, and they think this is the level to flip. This is the level at 155.2 or 7 that we're looking at as the Sol level that we're trading against, except it's actually a range of $20 or some shit like that. Yeah, a range of $20 in this case that we're looking at holding as support. So thesis on this, relatively simple. I wouldn't mind us breaking down into this before recovering it, similar to all the other charts. I do see this as the most natural progression for this chart, the most easy on the eyes, so to speak, for someone who's been looking at charts for a long time. This would be the easiest thing to look at and say, yeah, this would happen. Despite that, with Sol strength, I would love to, of course, and holding Sol myself still to date, I would love to see this just kind of bounce off here, set up this new range, so to speak, kind of above these levels where we have, similar to BTC, where we are setting up this new range in these highs. This is not the same BTC chart, but hey, can't win them all, right? Or same, yeah, BTC chart, whatever it was exactly at, who knows, some shit like this. So similar to this range, we're seeing this range on Sol right here, establishing the low of the range, or the high of the previous range is the low of the current range. That is the optimal scenario, in which, similar to BTC, where I say I would love a sweep of these lows and a recovery, we want a sweep of the lows on the Sol range into a recovery and a reclaim of the range. Optimally, if Sol strength continues, you would want to see this sweep not even occur, and that would be extremely bullish. Even if BTC does that sweep, you would want Sol not to see that sweep, and instead just range in this range for optimal strength on any Bitcoin rally. Sol would then just breach all-time highs and head straight to 500. That would be beautiful. But for now, realistically, if Sol continues to follow BTC the way it has, then we can expect, if Bitcoin does do this drop, Sol to drop back into the EQ of this range around 150, recover it, and hopefully head off to the races for the rest of 2025. So that is, I think, the main indicators that any of us really care about at this point. Most of us are trading shit coins. Few of us are trading alts, and if we're still trading alts and you're trading fucking Caspa and whatnot, then the covering of BTC and ETH should cover the outlook that you can extrapolate and kind of use on these various other altcoins. I think most of the market actually looks really shit. You see, this list has not been updated in a long time, as I haven't been trading as many alts. Jupe is still ranging, it's been fucking, what has it been, a year, and it's still within this range. I had a big bag of this, I sold it somewhere up here, pivoted that into Doge and made a beautiful trade. But most altcoins are looking dire, right? Which is why, you have a few things like Sui still looking decent. Jito sold this bag as well somewhere here, rotated that into Doge as well. But most alts are looking extremely dire, and I think the liquidity is just not there. Ondo is a beautiful looking chart. I was very bullish on this for a long time, and I think I should continue, or you should continue to be bullish on this chart overall. But enough about alts. I think most shit looks fucking pathetic. and should just not be traded. That's the overall outlook. All these coins have net outflows and everything's flowing into BTC. ETH has a net outflow, everything's flowing into BTC. Sol has a mid outflow. It's not too bad because of the trenches. So you can kind of see this mass migration into actually trading in the trenches. I believe that on-chain Sol trenches are going to stay alive a bit longer, and that's where the liquidity is going to be at and remain for a while, up until the bull market is going to essentially be quote unquote over. Whenever that is, I do not make those predictions. I just react. I said I was going to keep it short. I've been yapping. So that's the market outlook for this week. Keep your heads on straight. Keep trading. Don't overtrade. Don't fuck yourself up thinking you can catch every knife. We've all been there. And I think these are the conditions in which we're going to see some massive dips. And you don't want to be buying in too early. So wait for these confirmations, right? Like, if I say this is my Bitcoin expectations, sure, I will put some limit orders for some massive wick down to here. But don't be here like, you know, buying giga spot, because this could go lower. You'd much rather see the chart essentially do this and start recovering an uptrend, recovering these type of levels before you put a long in somewhere over here, right? So on this exact drawing, you put a long in here or whatever, and you reclaim one level, let alone if we reclaim this level, this would be a beautiful long here, right? So you have these options to actually hedge yourself against further downside rather than catching knives, because these are the market conditions in which big dips are going to make you extremely greedy and liquidate a lot of extra people. So don't do that, right? Like, we've been extremely bullish for months, and you're going to see some massive dip, and you're going to think this is the generational dip, and it might just be, and you might be right. Or not generational dip, but a dip that could make you generational wealth. It might just be, but more likely than not, you're going to be buying right here, and then right here, and then this is where you get liquidated, and then it turns over. So just be careful. Keep an outlook for a shift in market structure, and once that shift happens, you go for it. Regards, and good luck.